Hey everyone, welcome to Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast. I am here in the studio joined by Maynard Nexsen healthcare attorney Lauren DeMoss. Lauren, good to be with you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Great to be here.
And we are also joined today by Paul Sheils. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Fluent, formerly known as P&R Dental Strategies, and he is responsible for the overall strategic direction of Fluent. Paul has a distinguished 40-plus year career spanning the legal, business, and healthcare markets. He is a former general counsel of Dow Jones Information Service Group and a former executive for several digital health and health information technology companies, including Medscape.com, now part of WebMD, and MayoClinic.com. As a former journalist, I must also mention that when Paul was vice president of Dow Jones Interactive Publishing, he led the team that launched the 1996 Wall Street Journal online. Paul's something that I read every morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
God bless you and your family for reading the Wall Street Journal. I'm still.
That is my annual Christmas gift to my father. If you would, please kick us off a little bit, telling us about Fluent and the company's history.
I'd be happy to. Fluent, as you mentioned, is formerly known as P&R Dental Strategies. And Fluent is a technology-enabled services company that uses big data and analytics to actually provide business intelligence services, actionable insights to all stakeholders in the dental market. So we started life actually about 26 years ago. It's a pretty interesting story. P&R stands for Paciello and Rose. And Tony Paciello and Rose are two dentists that were in the business of providing what's called utilization review or claim review to large dental payers. And Tony was at the time a dental director at Aetna, and he was responsible for doing utilization review. And what that means is that every time a claim, a reimbursement claim comes into a dental payer or a health payer, a medical payer for that matter, the plan typically selects a portion of those to review to determine whether or not the claim has appropriate medical necessity, or was it properly coded or uncoded or upcoded, pardon me, or is it outright fraud? So they select those to do. And Tony and Diane got the great idea that, and most of at the time, this is in the early mid-90s, most of the major health and dental plans did that so-called utilization review or claim review internally with large staffs. They'd have either dentists or hygienists review the claims and determine whether or not it should be paid or pended. And pended means ask for more information to substantiate the claim, or just denied because it was just inappropriate. So Tony got the idea that, listen, we can probably do this much more effectively on the outside. And they had some significant macro or regulatory wins in their sales. Because as you may know, insurance companies are regulated by the states, and the states are the ones that set the rules for providing insurance and providing utilization review in their state. And the states have different regulations, and it became quite burdensome for a national plan like an Aetna to keep track of all of the different rules that regulated claim review. In one state, you needed to have a licensed dentist in that state review the claim. And in some states, you have to, that was called a turnaround time. You have to review the claim within a certain number of days. And they began to differ state by state. So compliance with those regulations became burdensome. So Diane and Tony said, listen, we can do this better on the outside. We can take care of all the burdens of compliance with all the 50 state different regulations. And we'll do outsourced claim review on our own as P&R Dental Strategies. And that was 1996, and they did a fabulous job. They actually really created the gold standard of outsourced claim review in the industry. Today, we're still known as that. A significant portion of our business remains claim review. And what they did is they instituted a very rigorous training program for the so-called dental consultants. In fact, today, I'm at the American Association of Dental Consultants annual meeting, where all the folks who review claims come and learn best practices and the like. And we're a significant employer. We have about 80 dental consultants on our staff, so many of them are here. So that they began life as purely a claim review company and did very well. But about 14 years ago, they hired a guy named Mike Urbeck, who remains with the company as president of our new markets. And he, like many of us in the company, had come from the medical world, where big data and analytics are second nature. There's large companies like IQVIA, formerly, and other companies that provide massive databases or leverage massive databases to provide insights to hospitals and doctors and on the medical side. But there wasn't anything like that in the dental world. So Mike came over and said, listen, Diane and Tony, you are capturing or being sent between 5 and 6% of a plan's claims every day for review. If you let me go out and try to convince the plan that they can supply all of their data to us on a monthly basis, we can provide what's called a benchmarking database, that all the claims data from all of the plans that we're able to accumulate can then be measured against each other anonymously. That's a traditional big data and analytics play. And you can imagine how challenging it was for Mike to go out to the very first plan and say, listen, we're going to create a big database and we want you to be the first contributor and give us all your very highly sensitive data that's HIPAA controlled and all kinds of things. Well, to his credit, and one of the real gems of Fluent's asset base is today we have the largest dental claims database in the industry, with about 70 national and regional dental payers contributing data on a monthly basis. And the database in January surpassed 5 billion procedure records. So it's
Wow.
huge. So anyway, the company is both a technology-enabled services company delivering technology-enabled claim review, but we're also what's known in the industry as an informatics or an analytics company, providing data-driven insights to payers, dental plans, to providers, dentists and DSOs, dental support organizations, and to suppliers, the dental manufacturers, the guys who manufacture the implants and the crowns and the cement. We call that the supplier market or the dental device and distribution market. So in a nutshell, that Fluent is a technology-enabled services company focused exclusively on the dental market that leverages big data and analytics.
Paul, talking about what Fluent was doing in the mid-90s was very cutting edge, right, at the time, and what Mike wanted to do, with taking the claims review outside and then going to these payers. I still think, the dental market is generally considered to be kind of behind the medical market in terms of leveraging information technology and data-driven analytics and how to use that, right, effectively to learn. And Fluent's changing that, right? And that's important. How do you think, in terms of looking at the different parts of the dental market, the payers, the dentists, the patients, how does this data-driven analytics really impact those different pieces of the dental market?
Well, it's a great question, Lauren. And, that's really our mission. Our mission is in part to educate the dental market about the value of data-driven decision-making, because unlike the medical space, it's not second nature. I mean, they don't have a history of using big data and insights from benchmarking databases to drive decision-making at any level. So a payer, a dental plan sees, we had to, and Diane and Tony and Mike, to their credit, went out when they first developed the database saying, listen, what are the pain points that a big database with benchmarking data would help you solve in the operations of your plan? And they did a traditional, essentially focus groups and, talked to the various departments in the large plans to determine that there are many pain points that could benefit from benchmarking. So, for example, we have something called the Network Development Manager module. And what that does, it helps the network department in a plan. And as you know, a dental plan, like a medical plan, has contracted dentists in their network. And this database, because it contains behavior information, trend information, procedure information about pretty much every dentist in the country, it can help the network development team in the plan select which dentist should be in their network. So it does provide data rather than just opening, and believe me, in the old days, they'd open the yellow pages and say, how many dentists are in Kokomo, Indiana? And they'd call everyone and ask them to be in the dentist. Well, this database, because it's got 20 years worth of information in it, and also behavioral information, which dentists, for example, are outliers. That's the term in the industry for overutilization. Do they do too many crowns or too many implants based upon a comparison with their similarly situated colleagues next door? So that's an example of how Fluent can provide insights into the network development team in a plan to determine which dentist they should go out and try to contract to be in their network. Absolutely. Similarly, in the payer market, that's another product of ours, is the utilization management module, which once you're in the network, now we can also actually track how you're doing. Are you submitting claims in the proper way? Are you overutilizing? Are you underutilizing? Or are you which 90% of the dentists are, they're perfectly legitimate, submit good claims and get paid timely. But there are some outliers. And as a utilization management tool, which is a software as a service, it's a SaaS-based tool, we provide the the utilization management team in the plan, access to this benchmarking database that all enables them to track how their network dentists are doing, and they can essentially intervene and say, listen, you're submitting the claims too frequently or improperly or whatever. So it's used as an education tool to make sure that the dentists in the network are behaving properly and submitting claims in the proper way. Now,
That's
another
interesting.
example is for, let's say it's the supplier world, meaning a dental distributor or a manufacturer of an implant. We have data that says, listen, we know exactly how many implants Dr. Smith did last week or last month. So our supplier business, so-called supplier business, enables us to say to a manufacturer, you need to target your sales and marketing efforts to these dentists who actually are involved in the procedure or the category of procedures of the device you're building or you're selling. So we can provide insights to the supplier market in terms of how to target their sales and marketing efforts to the right dentists at the right time. And that's kind of a critical component. So that's kind of a few examples of how Fluent can deploy its assets to help those target markets use data more effectively.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned DSOs, right, as part of the dental service organizations, and talking about, too, it makes me think about, the supplier market and how to get to the dentist and who's using what. And I think the kind of rise of DSOs is a pretty hot topic in the dental market right now. How do they impact the market and utilization and kind of supplier behavior, based on kind of what you're seeing and just generally Fluent's thoughts on the DSOs and how they're impacting the market?
Well, you can imagine, it's another great question, because of the massive amounts of data we've got. And by the way, our data that's already 5 billion records is increasing at the rate of 1 million procedures per day. So it's growing enormously. So we're able to track not only behavior, but we have an additional database that gets additional data about so-called affiliation data. So we can determine whether or not a dentist is in fact a solo practitioner, a member of a small group, or in fact a member of a DSO, a dental support or service organization, which for those of you who don't know are really corporate or private equity-backed firms that acquire or build numbers and numbers of clinics or doctor's offices into a support organization that provides kind of uniform back office services and access to a group purchasing and the like. So some people call it corporate dentistry, but it's a significant initiative or development in the dental market. It is a little bit misunderstood in my view, because we have access to the actual data of how many dentists are actually members of DSOs. And if you ask a normal, a significant player in the dental market, what the share of dentists are members of DSOs, they'll probably say 30 or 50%, which it's way off. We know, based on data as recent as December, that the number of dentists that are affiliated with DSOs is about 10 or 11%. Now, what that means is that there are about 6 DSOs that have more than 500 locations. So there's some very, very large ones, and they have a outsized impact on the impression of DSOs being significant in the market, and they are. And they're actually more significant in certain geographic regions than others. There are very large DSOs. In fact, the top 6 have more than 500 locations, and they are geographically concentrated. So, for example, in California, there's a large number of DSOs, Aspen Dental, Pacific Dental. They're very prominent in California. Texas, for example, has a very large concentration of DSOs, but in other states, very little. So if you're in Texas, you can think, well, there's a whole bunch of DSOs that operate the clinics in my state. But if you move to a different state, you'll see, a whole bunch of smaller practices. In fact, our statistics show that there's about 70% of dentists are still in solo practices. So yes, there's about 10 or 11% that are members of DSOs. The rest are in between, right? They're in the 2 to 50 location group. But believe me, almost 70% of dentists are still solo. So that's kind of the dynamic of the market that undercuts the notion that DSOs are taking over the world. However, our data, and we do a lot of projections, there's a couple of dynamics that we obviously are very sensitive to that are increasing the appeal of dentists joining DSOs. One of which is that I think it's 60 something percent of dentists in solo practices are over the age of 60. So they're going to be deciding what to do with their dentist. Will they sell it to another solo, or will they sell it to a DSO? So that is a factor in our projection of what kind of penetration or concentration DSOs will have in 10 years. Another factor is the expense of dental school. These kids graduating from dental school have huge debt burdens, and DSOs typically provide a very easy path, much more secure than setting up a shingle with a couple of $100,000 of debt and going out and hoping the first patient shows up at the door is a challenge for a new dentist. So there's a kind of both ends of the spectrum dynamic. You're a elderly or getting older dentist thinking about retiring and what are you going to do? A DSO sale is an option. Or if you're a brand new dentist thinking about how in the world you're going to pay your debt off, joining a DSO with a salary as opposed to earning patient by patient is also an attractive option. So we predict that in 10 years, the DSOs will have, and again, it's a wide range, between 30 and 50% of the market. So it's a big deal in terms of understanding the dynamics of a DSO. And DSOs are performing all kinds of valuable services for the dental industry. They're large enough and well financed enough to actually increase technology. For example, one of the big issues now in healthcare is interoperability and the ability to exchange data between dentists and doctors, because many dental conditions have direct implications for medical conditions, periodontal disease and diabetes as an example. And the reverse is true. If you have diabetes, you better be careful about your periodontal disease. But there's very little interaction between the two data sources, between the doctor and the dentist, because 150 years ago, the dental schools went one way and the medical schools went the other way, and they don't co-train. So, for example, an example of a sophisticated technology DSO is Pacific Dental, and they actually recently just adopted formerly known as a medical electronic health record or practice management system called Epic. And Epic is a very large player in the healthcare space and the medical space, as Lauren would know. And the DSO's adoption of that record facilitates the interoperability between a dental record and a medical record, because if you're in an area like Kaiser, for example, Kaiser Permanente is an Epic shop, and the ability for the dentists in Pacific Dental to share, data and information relevant to the medical care of their dental patient with the doctor or the hospital is much easier because maybe both systems are on Epic. So that's just an example of the benefits of a DSO in terms of scale and financial capability. And it's much more difficult for a solo practitioner to come up with a pretty sophisticated EHR or dental record platform that can do the same thing. So DSOs not only are growing, but changing the landscape in terms of the kinds of innovation and technology that a solo practitioner would be hard pressed to match. So it's an important thing to watch and follow.
One last question for you. Another hot topic is artificial intelligence, AI. What are your thoughts on the impact of your industry?
Well, AI is huge, and there are so many applications. We are particularly interested in the dental applications, obviously, and there are really three areas. I'll talk about the dental industry in general, and it's a very hot topic at this conference. Lots of talks about what the implications of artificial intelligence are on various aspects of the dental world. So let me talk about three of them. One of which is AI, and there are several vendors in the space or AI companies who've really done a masterful job of using artificial intelligence to look at an X-ray, a dental X-ray, or a health or a medical record X-ray as well. But that because of the sophistication of the technology, the so-called computer vision segment of artificial intelligence, they can look at an X-ray or a radiographic image of a mouth, and using what are called annotations or learning, machine learning, they can teach the machine to identify potential intervention opportunities. There's a bone loss here on this tooth. There's an emerging caries or cavity on this tooth, and they can do it with rather sophisticated precision. And they do it for the whole mouth. So that for the provider community, meaning the dentists themselves, the DSOs, again, this is still brand new, and a lot of the technology needs to be developed more. But the promise is that it will, in fact, make the review of your X-ray when you go into the office computerized. It will be actually, done by AI, and assist the dentist or the hygienist in identifying things that would not be as easily identifiable with the human eye. They can actually detect with AI. So in the so-called provider or the dental, the clinical area, AI is an important new tool to assist in the identification of intervention opportunities or problems in teeth. In our world, the insurance world, it's a little bit different. Because when a reimbursement claim is submitted to a plan, it's only looking at the one tooth that was treated, the procedure on tooth number 22. So you don't need the whole, panoply of services that an AI image analysis technology can look at the whole mouth. It can also help us as claim reviewers to measure things like bone loss, because reimbursement plan, a policy, has procedures and guidelines that say, yes, we will reimburse the dentist for this particular claim if X, bone loss is apparent or in evidence, and an AI tool can measure that with some specificity, and so we are developing our own with a partner called Denti AI that it enables us to combine our own technology, which is a algorithmic based way of looking at which claims to review, with AI technology in a way that combines AI and traditional algorithmic review of benchmarking database, outlier behavior, and the like into a single combination platform. And the final area is really remarkable. In fact, just last week, the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, the internal medicine edition of JAMA, published a remarkable study that says essentially it's Chat GPT, which everyone's talking about now in terms of being able to write term papers and essentially, do pretty much anything in the written world. Well, it's also a very sophisticated natural language processing technology and data, analytics capability. It used the study published in JAMA used Chat GPT driven answers to questions from patients. What are my symptoms for periodontal, or this in the medical side? What are my symptoms for diabetes? And they compared it. They compared the answers that Chat GPT gave to some great number of doctors who answered the same question. Guess who won? Chat GPT did a better job of answering the question, according to a panel of experts who reviewed the two blinded tests. Here's one from Chat GPT, and here's the other answer from a doctor. And overall, the Chat GPT outperformed the human dentist, the doctor, in answering the question. So AI, again, there are some problems with it, and it needs to be refined, but it's a tectonic change in every industry, not just the dental industry. So we'll be able to deploy AI and ML, machine learning, not only in the image analysis world, but in analyzing trends and indications in our database. I mean, remember, we have a 5 billion record database. So if we unleash AI into the database, we can find all kinds of things that we wouldn't have looked at before, because AI enables it to search for things in pattern recognition that we wouldn't even be thinking about in terms of pattern recognition. So AI is a big deal, a little bit early in adoption and perfection, but believe me, it's going to change a bunch of things.
It truly does feel like we're just on the frontier, right? We're just starting to, the sun is just starting to rise on what this is going to eventually show us.
Yep, it's pretty remarkable.
Well, Paul, thank you for joining us. On behalf of Lauren and the whole team here at Taking the Pulse, I have learned a tremendous amount in our time today, and we're grateful for your time, especially given you are at a conference and traveling.
Well, thank you. It's been a delight to talk to you. And let me just give a plug for Maynard Nexon. Lauren and her team have been extremely valuable to us. We've used them actually now for at least my 8-year tenure here. They've been so terrific. Having come from a law firm, I know what it's like to have a fabulous outside law firm backing you up, and Lauren and her team are just the best. So thanks to Lauren and Maynard Nexon for a great job supporting Fluent as an emerging technology company.
Well, thank you, Paul.
You for that.
Fluent is wonderful to work with. So thank you.
You bet. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. For those of you who joined us today on Taking the Pulse, we hope you learned a little bit more about the dental industry and all the new advances that are happening within providers and DSO and technology, AI. There just seems like a wealth to learn. We'll look forward to seeing you next time right here on Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast.